So next we'll move to the bigger drawing. Okay, let's move on to the actual figure drawing we're working with. So we did some of the work already on this smaller one. We know where the halfways and quarters are approximately, so we can start mapping this out. And here as well, we still want to sort of be pretty approximate. We don't need to be super precise. We just need to get something on the paper. And you can see I'm being pretty approximate, very light with the pencil. We'll start carving from there. And we just want really light lines, so we don't actually leave any dark marks on the paper, especially since we're not doing the transfer. This is a little bit too tilted. Let's just make it a little bit more vertical, this one. And yeah, I think kind of want this sort of C-curve gesture for this torso. As I was saying, we just kind of fixed it later on for the small one. Also, in the meantime, I clarified this a little bit, took away some lines, toned in the hair just because why not. Also indicated this sort of relationship between the creases on the butt cheeks. Basically they tend to align like that when the weight is resting more on one leg. That makes the pelvis tilt a little bit, so that happens. We'll just put some kind of line over here, even though we don't really necessarily see it on the picture. Just get something in there. And it's feeling a little bit too wide. So let's just get rid of this. Let's actually move the shoulder a little bit over there as well. So maybe that's more in line with the proportions that we're looking for, but as I said, we'll be fixing these things as we go along. It's hard to place anything super accurately on the paper, even if you're measuring quite a bit, but just have to sort of put something down at the start. Just make a sort of small indication for the neck here. There's not a whole lot visible, so I'll just try to make use of what I see there. So let's just kind of put something down for the head here. We're really not very interested at this point in anything more accurate than just a placement. So let's just do something pretty simple with straight lines. Seeing as we might have to move this whole thing, we don't want to, start putting in noses or features of any kind. Just place it. Then once we have everything in place, we can, see if the figure looks good or not. If the proportions are all right. We don't want to have it tilting. Sometimes we put the place. Sometimes we place the head a little bit too much to, say, the left, and then it looks like the whole figure is sort of in a falling motion, and we just throw it in place. We don't want that. We want some kind of stability, So that's why sometimes the head needs to shift quite a bit. Along with other things, of course. We usually don't just make a single change, but all right, let's carry on with the process. Perhaps this time I'll actually measure the foot too. Just compare it to a quarter. Let's say it's 2/5 of a quarter or something like this. Sure, let's just have it at that. So let's make sure not to go too much beyond the bottom part over here. And we can just grab a measurement here, just compare it again roughly. As I said, this is more like the rough placement. I feel like there's a little bit more on the left side with this foot. So let's take an even amount away from that side. Just fix a little bit. There's a little bit of an angle over here where the heel is, and then it turns pretty vertical, but also slightly slanted to the left. Now it looks like I pushed the ankle way too far that way, so let's just bring it in a little bit. Just the thickness wasn't really looking correct. On the reference there, maybe we see I made the foot a little bit too shallow, or well, this vertical measurement wasn't looking right. It's more of a triangular shape. Mine was looking a little bit too flat, so it's just do something simple like that. We don't really want to get more detailed than this at this stage, since, you know, we might still have to replace this foot with something. And this is a little bit on the larger side maybe, but we'll just leave it there for now and see what happens as we keep placing things. Okay, that angle is a little bit off, I feel like. It's actually, I'm trying to simplify that foot a little bit too much. Maybe it first sort of connects to the ground. Maybe we can indicate that with a straight line, and from there it sort of lifts up to the heel. So let's just break that down into two separate lines. See the heel bone, it creates a bit of flatness over here before it actually then tilts to the left with the calf. Maybe not that much though, so let's just indicate that. Okay, and maybe just a little bit of an indication over here as well. Actually, more like this. Yeah, this is a little bit oversimplified, so maybe just give it something. Really a good way here to sort of get a grasp is to take the measurement of both feet horizontally and compare that to the quarter. Or maybe 3/4. Yeah. Okay, let's not get too stuck on here. Let's just sort of break it down like that. See where that leads us. Okay, let's proceed with the knees. Can sort of we can sort of feel the knee coming from there. I'm looking at the angle that the knee is sort of placed at, if it's looking all right. This knee is also, maybe I pushed it a little bit too much to the right, so let's just sort of bring it back a little bit. We're gonna have the hand over here, but it doesn't really go too much beyond the hand. Don't really see the other side of this knee. And for this, knee over here, it's pretty much smack in the middle. Just push that. So yeah, the plumb line goes pretty much in the middle of this knee, so I'm just looking at, how wide do I actually want to make this knee area over here. This is the back of this left knee that I'm placing here. So let's just try to connect it and see how it feels. That feels more or less good. Okay, we can just sort of, perhaps we can toss in a little straight line here, sort of indicate a little bit of that musculature of the tibialis, sort of, or not the tibialis, maybe also the lateral muscle mass over here. Actually, we could even push that out a little bit more, just give it a little bit more thickness. And here I maybe overdid it a little bit, so let's just sort of remedy that as well. And we arrive at something more akin to what we're actually seeing. So here I think I actually sort of went the wrong way with the C curve, so it's not really feeling right. It's okay to make changes. So I think we'll just sort of C curve it this way, and in here we just use the same C curve. So we sort of switch the straight line to this side, and it feels a bit better to me right now. So let's maybe extend this section a little bit with the sort of the thickness of the calf muscle coming a little bit further down. And this is still the gesture stage, so we're just trying to sort of match the general proportion maybe of that, but we'll come in and we'll fix things like the ankle is looking a little bit thick, but maybe that's because our C curve is sort of, maybe it's actually dropping a little bit too low on there, so we might sort of extend the ankle a little bit higher and then connect the C curve to that part, so it looks a bit thinner overall. It's still pretty rough, of course. This knee is looking a little bit off as well. Just sort of try to find some things. What I'm doing here, I'm sort of trying to imagine how this can actually connect to the other bits I've placed. If I imagine the thigh, it doesn't really go like this, where is it going to? It's actually connecting here on the front side, more or less in the middle. It has a little bit of roundness, so this feels more like correct to what I'm seeing also. So, and again, we'll be coming back to these things, but we just want to get something to look at, and then we start nudging things around, we start refining with the construct stage. And if you're, very used to this sort of process, then of course the gesture stage might take a little bit less time than this already, but we want to take our time to make sure we're doing a good job. I'm just carving off a little bit of the torso because it doesn't look very much in proportion. Just sort of imagining the outline of the left edge of the torso. It's covered by the arm, so it's a bit tricky. We'll put the arm there in just a moment. Also, as I'm here, I'll just sort of straighten out something in here a little bit to sort of match what I'm seeing a little more. Maybe we can actually use the rear S curve in here. Then perhaps drop this straight line in here. And now we have something to sort of visualize connecting to the thigh there as well. We don't really have to do that yet, but I'm just kind of fixing things as I notice them, honestly. And yeah, let's connect this knee here first. And we want to, of course, we see this happening on the image, this sort of C curve. Actually, maybe it's the whole sort of angle of this part of the leg is a little bit less upright and more like this. I can't describe it. But so we actually probably have to just push out the entirety of this leg a little bit more, which I feel is all right. And then from here we can then sort of find the connection a little bit better. Let's face it, I haven't done this in years, so it's a bit of a rehearsal for me as well. Just kind of trying to recall what I've been doing back in my school days. So now it's feeling like this leg is out of proportion, so let's actually just bring it in overall. And here we see, you know, our initial guess maybe is not too good, not too great. Doesn't matter, we'll just fix it. Eventually we'll get there. Here we can see it connecting over there. And now it's looking like she has, you know, two at least somewhat believable legs. Great. Maybe we overdid this one a little bit. We can sort of push out the muscly bits a little bit, and she doesn't have an insanely thick ankle. So yeah, a little bit better. And here we can just connect that piece back to the whole picture. Okay. Now we should probably just put some light indications for these creases. There's some pretty good strong points we can use maybe further. Well, not strong points, but you know, they help us visualize this whole picture a little bit better. And this is where the thigh connects, and the other crease sort of comes from there. So yeah, maybe that's something we can then use. So perhaps this thigh is looking a little bit on the thicker side. Let's just take it in a little bit. Leave a little bit more space to the other one. That one was looking a little bit off. Now we have something, you know, some of the information we're actually seeing on there. The more we get information, the more we can actually compare things. All right, so let's put in the hand next. Maybe sort of guesstimate somewhere around here. Let's say the hand ends a little bit lower than the center mark. And I'm sorry, this probably is a little bit tedious to watch and not the most, you know, interesting thing to look at, but I think it's important to understand the whole process. So maybe at this point we can just sort of map out this arm with just a C curve, just sort of give us, you know, the sort of big placement of this arm. I think we can just give the arm slightly more thickness. Okay. And the breast is a little bit, I think it's a little bit underneath the quarter mark. So let's just put some indication for it. And finally, let's put in this elbow over here. Again, it's more or less with the bottom of the rib cage, which would end up somewhere around here, you know. The elbow usually lines up with the bottom of the rib cage. That's a good thing to remember as well. But we can also look at the points we measured before. Maybe it's a little bit higher than the halfway between these. So let's just be happy with this placement for now. We can always come back and give it another look. Okay. Maybe let's adjust the shoulders a little bit. You know, they're a little bit too rough, sort of to sort of understand what's happening there. And remember to look for the alignment here, you know, is the tilt right? And then we have the hair sort of coming down. Before we put in too much more information, we just want to check, you know, is it feeling like the figure is in balance, you know? Are we seeing what we're seeing on the reference? Are we seeing its, you know, weight kind of on this left leg? We get rid of some distracting lines like this pelvis line now, since it was just, you know, a very initial guess. Can just get rid of some of those extra bits that are hanging about. So we can sort of put in a line here where the hair goes, so we can actually look at this shape of the neck and the shoulder with some extra information. This hair actually creates a pretty good shape for us here. Then we can sort of compare, is this face area somewhat, you know, accurate at least. And I feel like we need to push it out a little bit more. Still keeping it really rough. We just want to get the size right, more or less. And maybe we can just carve this hair shape a little bit, not much, but a little bit like that. And now I feel like the head is more in proportion. It's very small changes. Okay. So I guess this could be called the sort of end of the gesture stage. Since I'm, I guess, more or less happy with the proportions overall. Well, not this part. The hair comes over here. We don't really need to have this, but I feel like this area is not working. It feels like the pelvis was sort of too high or something, maybe, I don't know. But something was kind of bothering me there. But again, we can now just put in the hair over there. We don't really have to figure out the exact, you know, contour over there. Let's not do the extra work, since we are happy enough to have chosen this picture where a part at least of the lights are hidden by this hair. I feel like this shoulder is a little bit too far out. All right, just sort of inching our way towards accuracy here. And yeah, let's just have things connect over here. Maybe the hand could be slightly more big. It feels like it could be real, but I think on the model it's just ever so slightly, you know, larger. So small changes can be made very quickly. Let's pick this for more precise erasing. So maybe that's a little bit closer. So you can see it's easy to nudge things around when you have this soft pencil very lightly applied. Doesn't really matter if you place something a little bit off at the start. Cleans up well enough. Okay, maybe at this point, just for my own sake, you know, I'll take a break so I can actually, you know, check this with a fresh eye and see if I make any adjustments before we move on to the construct stage. All right, let's get back. And before I turned on the camera, I took a peek at this drawing, and from a little bit further away, I notice my figure is looking a little bit wide overall. And what does that mean? It's sort of, maybe it looks a little bit shorter than the model I'm seeing in the image, but overall I feel like there's a little bit too much width in the pelvic area here. And maybe that's one thing we can fix first. We should usually ask, you know, we should ask ourselves, you know, what we should actually move to, you know, fix that thing we're feeling. One thing I sort of feel is maybe this sort of line of the knee is a little bit short. That gives me an indication that maybe also this thigh is a little bit too low on there. Maybe that's something that actually we can move a little bit higher. That also gives us a slightly slimmer thigh. Can just extend that up a little bit. Good, not a drastic change. And the most obvious thing I think is perhaps this area over here. I think we can just pretty safely sort of carve away a little bit of this area over here. Maybe we can go a little bit overboard at the start and see if that fixes the issue, and just get rid of any distracting lines. Now we have a figure that looks a little bit taller, and I suppose a little bit slimmer as well. Perhaps this this line of the torso also needs to move a little bit, otherwise it's not really connecting behind the hair. Also, we can see the torso connects behind the hair a little bit higher up on the hair. I didn't really measure the position of the low point of the hair. It might actually be a little bit lower as well. Like this maybe. So let's just make that small nudge. Maybe we can just simplify the hair for now in a shape like that. So yeah, now we have a more connected torso sort of heading into the pelvic area, or pelvis. And we can now take another look. So maybe this area over here is looking a little bit on the higher side. I just need to check what's sort of contributing to that. Is it just that the chin is too high, or is it, you know, other things giving me the impression that that is the case? But I think it's honestly just, you know, maybe a millimeter or something. We need to give her a little bit of a chin. Now the head seems a bit taller as well. Perhaps we can push out the hair a little bit this side, ever so slightly. So now we're not really heading into the construct stage yet, but we're rather just trying to fix things that we're seeing. So we're not really, you know, paying mind to what stage we're in. We're just moving lines around. Yeah, because there's no point in really refining things before we actually have something to refine. Okay, I think this is a pretty good place to start moving into the construct stage. Maybe I cheated a little bit here and there, you know, sort of went into the construction side of things already. Maybe with this, you know, this shoulder area over here I already sort of broke into a couple lines instead of just, you know, having the straight line and the sort of, you know, bean shape of the torso like this. Okay, that's a bad example, but also maybe I shouldn't draw on this paper too much. Not that it's in the best of conditions to start with, but maybe we can keep it a bit cleaner. Yeah, okay, so let's start looking at things. You know, we want to refine a lot of things, maybe not to the articulation stage, but we want to further make things more accurate.